It started like any other night. A quiet shift. A routine job. And then she was gone. 18-year-old Samantha Koenig vanished without a trace from her workplace in Anchorage, Alaska. No witnesses. No signs of struggle. Just an empty kiosk and a city full of questions. Within days, a chilling ransom note surfaced, along with a photo of Samantha that no one could believe. Her family followed every instruction, wired the money, begged for her safe return. But what they didn't know was this: Samantha had been dead for days. The man behind the ransom photo was already on the road, driving thousands of miles, with a corpse in the backseat and a plan for what to do next. That man was Israel Keyes. He didn't kill for revenge. Not for money. Not even for a specific type of victim. He killed because he wanted to, and because he could. Over the span of more than a decade, Keyes roamed the United States, hiding kill kits in remote locations. He'd come back years later, dig them up, and find someone, anyone, to murder. He called them projects. To him, it was a game. To the FBI, it was a nightmare. They believe he may have murdered at least 11 people, but the truth could be far more disturbing. Because Keyes refused to name names. He took his secrets to the grave. This isn't just the story of a serial killer. This is the story of a man who built his life around hunting strangers, and almost got away with it. Most serial killers have a pattern. A victim type. A ritual. Something investigators can use to piece together a profile. But Israel Keyes broke every rule. He didn't stalk his victims for weeks. He didn't care what they looked like, how old they were, or where they lived. He picked towns at random, flew across the country, drove for hours, waited for the perfect moment, and then struck without warning. He didn't just hide his crimes. He planned them years in advance. Before he ever chose a victim, he buried supply kits, duct tape, weapons, cash, even Drano, in remote areas all across the U.S. Then he'd return, sometimes years later, dig one up, and begin the hunt. He was calculated, patient, invisible, and he might have gotten away with it forever, if not for one mistake. In this video, we're diving deep into the twisted double life of Israel Keyes, the so-called perfect serial killer, who left behind more questions than answers. We'll uncover how he operated, what the FBI still won't reveal, and the one case that finally brought him down. This is a story about control, darkness, and the terrifying idea that some monsters really are hiding in plain sight. On the surface, Israel Keyes didn't look like a killer. He ran a small construction company in Anchorage, Alaska. He was known to neighbors as a reliable handyman, quiet, polite, even friendly. He had a long-term girlfriend, a young daughter he adored. He attended school plays, helped with homework, shoveled his neighbor's driveway in the winter. If you passed him on the street, you'd never think twice. That's exactly how he wanted it. But behind that calm exterior was something else entirely. A man who carefully designed a life that allowed him to kill without suspicion. Keyes was born in Utah in 1978 and raised in a strict, isolated, survivalist household. No electricity. No running water. His parents moved the family deep into rural Washington state, away from society. He was homeschooled and brought up under radical religious beliefs. As a teenager, he drifted even further into the shadows, fascinated by death, cruelty, and control. He later joined the U.S. Army, serving at Fort Lewis, and even spending time overseas. His military record: clean. No red flags. Fellow soldiers described him as disciplined, quiet, the kind of guy who followed orders and kept to himself. After his service, he settled in Alaska, started his own business, and blended in. But all the while, he was studying other serial killers, learning from their mistakes, crafting his own rules. Rules that would make him one of the most difficult killers to track in FBI history. He made it a point to never kill near home, never leave a pattern, always use cash, turn off his phone, fly into one state, rent a car, and drive thousands of miles to commit murder in another. His goal, to be completely untraceable. And for over a decade, he succeeded. Nobody, not his friends, not his partner, not even the FBI, had any idea what he was really capable of. Until one night in February 2012, when he crossed a line and everything started to unravel. What made Israel Keyes different wasn't just how he killed. It was how he planned to kill, with a level of patience and strategy that stunned even seasoned FBI agents. Years before he ever chose a victim, Keyes buried kill kits across the United States. These were 5-gallon Home Depot buckets, sealed shut and hidden in remote locations, in the woods, under brush, behind buildings. Inside were handguns, silencers, zip ties, duct tape, garbage bags, rope, cash, and cleaning supplies like Drano to destroy DNA evidence. Each kit was a time bomb, waiting for him to come back. He'd bury one in, say, upstate New York, and not return to it for another 2 or 3 years. Then, when the timing felt right, he'd fly into a completely different state, rent a car, and drive hundreds or even thousands of miles to where the kit was hidden. He'd scout a town, any town, looking for someone who lived alone, a house with no nearby neighbors, no dogs, no security systems. Then, under the cover of night, he'd break in. No warning, no connection, no motive. Just a plan already in motion. That's what made him so hard to track. There was no geographic pattern, no victim type, and no forensic trail. He didn't use phones. He paid only in cash. He avoided killing near home. Everything was randomized, except for how precise it all was. And it wasn't just about the killing. Keyes enjoyed the entire process. He referred to his murders as projects, multi-step missions he could execute and then walk away from, unnoticed. In interviews, he even bragged about robbing banks to fund his crimes. He'd knock over a bank, drive away with a bag of money, and stash it with one of his kill kits to use on future trips. At one point, Keyes told the FBI, "You're going to have a lot of bodies, once you figure out where I've been." And that wasn't an exaggeration. Investigators later discovered that Keyes had driven over 30,000 miles in the year leading up to his arrest. He had kits buried in New York, Washington, Arizona, and other states. And he admitted to multiple murders, but refused to give names. To this day, no one knows how many people he actually killed. But one thing was clear. He was meticulous, mobile, and almost invisible. And then he made a mistake. He chose a victim too close to home, a decision that would expose everything. On the night of February 1, 2012, Samantha Koenig was working a late shift at a small coffee stand in Anchorage, Alaska. She was just 18 years old, vibrant, funny, and full of life. Like a lot of teenagers, she had dreams and plans. She was supposed to be picked up by her boyfriend after work. But she never made it home. When her boyfriend arrived, the kiosk was empty. Her phone was off. Her father called the police immediately, but there were few clues No signs of forced entry, no blood, no struggle. Just nothing. Days passed. The community rallied. Flyers went up, search parties organized. But Samantha had vanished into thin air. Then, 2 weeks later, something strange happened. Samantha's boyfriend received a text from her phone. It directed the family to a local park. There, under a missing dog poster, they found a ransom note. Attached to it was a photo of Samantha, tied up, eyes open, holding a newspaper dated that very day, proof she was alive. The family followed the instructions and deposited $30,000 into her bank account, hoping for a safe return. What they didn't know, what no one knew, was that Samantha had already been dead for days. Israel Keyes had killed her the very first night he abducted her. But he wasn't done with her body. After murdering her, he hid the body in a shed behind his home, in freezing Alaskan temperatures. Then he flew to New Orleans, boarded a cruise to Mexico with his girlfriend, and vacationed for 2 weeks, all while Samantha's body remained frozen back home. When he returned, he sewed her eyes open, propped her up to make it look like she was still alive, and took the photo used in the ransom note. He printed out the newspaper, staged the scene, and sent it to the family, all to buy himself more time. He then used Samantha's debit card, carefully, across multiple states, withdrawing small amounts of money while driving from Alaska to Texas. He wore disguises, stayed off highways, switched vehicles, all while the FBI raced to track his movements based on ATM security footage. But this time, his perfect plan had cracks. In Texas, on March 13, 2012, police pulled over a man driving erratically. The driver was Israel Keyes. Inside the car, they found Samantha's debit card, her cell phone, a gun, and pieces of the same ransom note paper. It was over. Back in Alaska, Keyes eventually confessed to Samantha's murder, but he didn't show remorse. He spoke coldly, clinically, as if describing a project he had completed. He admitted to raping and strangling her, then going on vacation while her body was stashed in the snow. He led investigators to the lake, where he had dismembered and disposed of her remains. Divers recovered what was left. For Samantha's family, it was a devastating confirmation of what they feared most. But for the FBI, the nightmare was just beginning. Because once they had Israel Keyes in custody, he started talking. And what he told them changed everything they thought they knew about this case. In custody, Israel Keyes didn't deny anything. In fact, he seemed almost eager to talk, but on his terms. He told investigators he would confess to multiple murders if they kept his name out of the media. He didn't want his daughter to know what he had done. He also refused to give names unless he could be guaranteed the death penalty. Their interviews were chilling. In hours of recorded footage, you hear him speak with a calm, detached tone, no emotion, no hesitation. He describes his crimes the way someone might describe a grocery list. It was just another job, he told them. Keyes revealed that Samantha wasn't his first victim, not even close. He claimed to have committed murders across the country, beginning as early as 2001. He described raping and killing a couple in Vermont. He told them about other victims, some buried, some dumped in lakes, some whose bodies may never be found. He never used names, never specifics, just enough to torment investigators. What disturbed the FBI most wasn't just what he said. It was how carefully he had constructed his life to enable murder. Keyes had a set of personal rules. Never kill near home. Never kill someone you know. Avoid patterns. Destroy evidence. Use cash only. Travel long distances, too separate where you live from where you kill. Don't bring souvenirs home. He had studied other serial killers obsessively, Ted Bundy, Dennis Rader, Robert Hansen, and learned from their mistakes. His goal was to become the perfect serial killer, invisible to law enforcement. And for a long time he was. The FBI believes there may be many more victims, but Keyes refused to name them. He liked the power of knowing more than the people trying to catch him. There's no one who knows me, or who has ever known me, who knows anything about me really, he once said. They're going to be learning everything about me at the same time as everyone else. And then, just as quickly as he had opened up, he shut down. Officially, Israel Keyes confessed to killing 11 people. But only 3 victims have ever been positively identified. The first is Samantha Koenig, the case that led to his capture. The second and third were a couple from Vermont, Bill and Lorraine Currier. In 2011, Keyes broke into their home, abducted them at gunpoint, and took them to an abandoned farmhouse. There, he shot Bill in the basement and sexually assaulted and strangled Lorraine upstairs before dumping their bodies and fleeing. The state. Their remains were never found. But those are just the confirmed names. The rest. A terrifying mystery. During interrogations, Keyes drew 11 skulls on a sheet of paper, each one supposedly representing a victim. He refused to elaborate. When the FBI pressed him, he said only, "Look at my travels. Look at the missing persons." And so they did. Keyes had traveled extensively. New York, Texas, Washington, Arizona, Illinois, Wyoming, California. In 1 year alone, he drove 30,000 miles, crossing state lines repeatedly, using rental cars and burner phones. The FBI now believes Keyes may have killed far more than 11 people, maybe dozens. Many of his suspected murders could be cold cases from small towns across the country, never connected to him. Victims could be men, women, even teenagers, strangers plucked off hiking trails, rest stops, or parking lots. And because Keyes refused to give names or locations, most of these families may never get closure. His final act of control was silence. He once told investigators, "You've got your monster. I don't want to waste your time. I'll tell you what I want you to know." And with that, the rest stayed buried, just like the victims he never named. On December 2, 2012, just 8 months after his arrest, Israel Keyes was found dead in his jail cell at the Anchorage Correctional Complex. He had slit his wrists and strangled himself with a bedsheet, a brutal, determined act of suicide that authorities believe he had meticulously planned. He left behind a suicide note, scrawled in blood and ink on pieces of yellow legal paper. But it wasn't a confession. It wasn't a list of victims. It wasn't even an apology. It was a bizarre, cryptic, poetic monologue, filled with references to death, destruction, and the thrill of the hunt. One line read, "Your face framed in dark curls like a portrait, the sun shone through highlights of red. What's one less light?" To the families of his victims, it was meaningless. No names. No answers. Just more evidence of his need for control, even in death. The FBI was devastated. With Keyes gone, the hope of learning about more victims, of bringing closure to grieving families, died with him. They continued to search. Analysts reviewed hundreds of hours of travel logs, credit card statements, surveillance footage, and missing persons cases. But without Keyes's cooperation, connecting the dots became nearly impassable. To this day, his full body count remains unknown. He was a killer without a pattern, a predator without borders. And while most serial killers eventually slip up, Keyes had only made one mistake: Samantha Koenig. Without that, he might still be out there. And for investigators, that's the most terrifying thought of all. Israel Keyes wasn't just a serial killer. He was a ghost in the system, a man who weaponized his normal life to hide monstrous crimes, who killed at random and walked away like nothing happened. No pattern, no remorse, no names. He wanted total control over his victims, their investigation, even the story we tell about him now. And he almost got it. We may never know how many lives he ended. How many families are still out there with no answers, no justice, just a missing poster and a lifetime of silence. But maybe the scariest part is this. If he hadn't been caught by accident, he'd probably still be killing today. So now I want to hear from you. How many victims do you think Israel Keyes really had? And do you believe the FBI will ever solve the rest of his crimes? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into real-life monsters, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Stay safe. Stay curious.